Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Dallas Watch. Warren Johnson here, and today we're going to talk about the media in Dallas. As you know, running for city council, I got to know the media a lot better than I did before, and I was not happy with what I saw. I thought I knew what I was getting into with these guys, but it was even worse than I thought. And when you talk about media in Dallas, I'm talking about print media. And pretty much that's going to be, as you know, Dallas Morning News, D Magazine, and The Observer. I don't know how The Observer always seems to fit in here. They seem to be, at least the last time I read it, which was, I think, last century. It was a magazine filled with porno ads, and on occasionally you had an article in there. The writers tended to be pretty good. I think Robert Wolanski, who's now with the Dallas Morning News, was there. Former mayor, the lady that ran, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she was a writer for the Observer for a while. And now we've got Jim Schutz, or Jim Schutze, or I don't know how it's pronounced. I think it's Schutz, but he's the writer there. And I got to give the devil his due. He's a good writer, and all these guys are good writers. D Magazine has good writers. Dallas Morning News are pretty fair writers. And they should be writing crime novels or reports on crimes, things like that, and that'll be good. But as you know, they've become advocates for a cause, and we know that cause is progressivism. And we all know that they look down on conservatives, and they look down on anybody else who's not a progressive or anybody else that does not feel the same way they do. So this is really nothing news here. But they've also become so predictable. I got to the point where I could literally pick a paragraph at random, blindly, and not knowing where it came from. I could determine, that came from the Dallas Morning News or the Observer or D Magazine. Again, they're just so predictable. There's nothing new there. Now, once again, we all say we know the media is predictable and they're following an agenda, but I, again, had no idea how bad it was. When I got involved with this Lee statue removal, it was not because I was a big fan of the Confederacy or the Lost Cause or anything like that. It was a beautiful statue in my neighborhood. That's going to be another episode we're going to talk about, but I just wanted to tell you how I got to this place. So when I decided to run for city council, and I made sure on the returnlee2leepark.org page and anything else I put on Facebook, and the Facebook page is Put Lee Back in Lee Park, I made it sure that I stayed clear of the word Confederate. I wanted it to be put back because it was a beautiful work of art, a valuable piece of art done by a renowned sculptor. But I got tagged without using that word in anything I did as a Confederate statue fan or a fan of the Confederacy. That first came out of D Magazine, who, by the way, accused me of bribing Dwayne Caraway. And how I found out about that, because I don't really read D Magazine a lot, or really at all, just passing in the counters when I go in the grocery store. They had my attorney, an attorney friend, saw that, called me up and asked if I'd seen it, and I said no, I hadn't. So I looked at it, and I called, well, are they accusing me of bribing Dwayne Caraway? And they go, yes, they are. And so we ended up, had the attorney write him a letter, and they reprinted, I didn't reprint the letter, but we had a retraction, which essentially said, I did not know Dwayne Caraway, have no connection with Dwayne Caraway, I've never met Dwayne Caraway. That's even hard to say. Try saying Dwayne Caraway 10 times real fast. Again, The Observer, it seems like it's a porn magazine. We get porn ads, and you get a pretty good article every now and then, but the bulk of it is just that kind of garbage. It's good for the typical birdcage liner. Dallas Morning News is one my head just spins sometimes at the hypocrisy of that whole organization. And they've had to move from a rather large building over across Union Station here in downtown Dallas to a much smaller building. They're having to sell that property so they can have money to stay afloat, yet they still put out their dribble. They play this holier-than-thou game, especially regarding people that are big fans of, enjoy the Southern culture. Of course, they print out a bunch of lies about that. I'm going to cover that in future episodes as well. But I find it hypocritical that they do that, because the Dallas Morning News was begun by a man, A.H. Belo, who was a Confederate officer, a high-ranking Confederate officer. At least a colonel, he may have been a general. I'm not a big scholar of Confederate history or Civil War, but I have some knowledge of it. And it's still under the A.H. Belo Corporation, or I believe just the Belo Corporation. So when they spout all this stuff, we have to get rid of statutes, we have to change school names, we have to change street names, we have to destroy cemeteries because they have Confederate veterans. They still operate under the name of a Confederate veteran, who I think was an honorable man, a man of his times, but still they're being very hypocritical about this. Again, all this stuff is, stuff you already knew. But this progressive agenda that they push, it's just really getting out of hand. Everybody knows they're doing it. And so sadly, we're left here in Dallas without a source, an unbiased source of news. Now, the early days of our country, once we were founded, obviously the First Amendment was freedom of the press, along with freedom of the religion, but freedom of the press. And mainly it's so somebody could start up a newspaper and really say whatever they wanted to say. And I stand up for that right, for somebody to have a newspaper like Dallas Morning News to say, we're going to be a leftist organization. We're going to tout progressivism. We're anti-Confederate, well, they make that plain, or we're anti-conservative or anti-Republican. That's fine. Just stand up and say it. Same with the Observer. Hey, we're pushing an agenda, progressivism. This is where you come to get the progressive viewpoint. Fine, stay with that. Same with D Magazine. D's more of a kind of a hip and cool kind of magazine. Those people over there want Dallas to be a lot like New York City. Well, fine. I support your right and defend your right to say that and have the freedom to do that, but don't color us as bad. But they're still going to do it. They have the freedom to do it. So I would encourage, hopefully at some point in time, but I think for right now, I'm going to be it. I'm going to be the guy that comes out and gives the conservative spin, and I'll be honest about it. I'm going to be pressing conservatism. I'm going to be arguing for conservatism. In fact, I'm more of a libertarian, and I would be a libertarian except for that horrendous Planck 1.5 that they have. But so now I guess I call myself a conservative libertarian or a libertarian conservative. You know, the less laws, the better, the old stuff, you know, that the government that governs, or the nation that governs least, or the government that governs least governs best, all that kind of stuff. Just stay out of our hair, leave everybody else alone, let us be productive, let us get along, let us disagree in any way we see fit, just as long as no one is harmed. But again, just to have common sense about the whole thing. So that's going to wrap up today about the media. But I'll have more to say about them in parts of other episodes that are come further. So again, if you want to give me a little feedback, I'd love to have it, because this is only the second episode. Hopefully I've gotten better than the first episode. Sometimes I go down a little bit before I pick back up. But you can contact me at DallasWatch2020. The number's 2020, DallasWatch spelled out 2020 at gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you at the next episode 3. So long.